Raider Nation. Thank you for joining us on the Only Nation podcast, brought to you by the Raider Ramble and sponsored by Chucky's Thugs. My name is Heidi, but you may know me as Kevlar Prom Dress or even Raider Ladybug. I'm here with T3 Raider Facts, and we're ready to talk some Raiders football together.
You know, Heidi, even in a loss, we are still hanging in there. Let's just press on and make our way toward Kansas City.
Today on the show, we will talk about the tough loss to the Washington football team, which has now dropped the Raiders' record to 6-6, putting them way in the distance as far as playoffs go. So we'll talk about that and what we can expect all week against the Chiefs, because despite the records, you know this is our biggest rival.
Okay, Raider Nation, we would love to hear from you, so here's how you can get in touch with us. Give us a call on the Only Nation podcast voicemail line at 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. You can also check us out on the web at onlynationpod.com.
Here's the latest Raider news.
The Silver and Black are now sitting at 500 for the second time this season, after going 5-2 over the first 7 games. Despite the 17-15 loss, the Raiders had their chances to lock up victory on Sunday. After giving up a touchdown in Washington's first drive, the Raiders' defense didn't allow another point until the fourth quarter. So overall, the defense did its job.
Unlike in years past, Heidi, this loss cannot be pinned on the defense. I know they gave up the touchdown drive early, but as you just mentioned, they did not give up a single point again until the fourth quarter. Now, it could have really helped if they'd had a fourth quarter stop at the very end. I just kind of had a bad feeling when we got that field goal that they were going to come down in a 2-minute drill and put themselves in a position to win the game, which they did. But all in all, I think the defense really set the tone for themselves. There were just a lot of points left out on the board by the Raiders offense, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, the defense overall did what they're supposed to do. If you hold a team in the NFL to 17 points, your offense is supposed to be able to score more and come out with that victory. So the defense wasn't perfect. They had some areas they need to work on, but overall, this loss was on the offense.
Definitely.
The Raiders were penalized 6 times for 54 yards, but 2 of the penalties were highly suspect. The roughing the passer call against Max Crosby and the illegal contact low tackle call against Jonathan Abram. Overall, it was a fairly clean game for the Raiders, and the offense did not turn the ball over at all. But on this day, the Raiders simply were not opportunistic.
They were not opportunistic. When they were down 7-3, they had a really, really good opportunity to put the ball in the end zone. They were driving it down. Then they had to settle for the field goal. And then they did again late, where again they had to settle for another field goal. But again, the defense did turn the ball over. We got the interception, but we just need to convert touchdowns. Touchdowns are what are going to win games and not field goals. And as for those 2 penalties, the one on Max Crosby, I mean, give me a break. When the defender is in the air and coming down on the quarterback, that's going to happen. That's just a natural progression in the game. I would have easily traded that one for the roughing the passer call they had on Derek Carr, which I thought was a ticky-tack foul as well. But now that penalty against Jonathan Abram, where he was trying to go low under the blocker, and he made contact with the blocker, well, then he did more with the back, and they caught that. That's such an odd call. I can't believe they even called that.
It was pretty much just really lame. Those 2 calls, they were basically pretty controversial. They simply shouldn't have been made.
And they happened at horrible times.
It really set the Raiders back. Really did.
Indeed.
Darren Waller missed the game due to a knee injury, though he is expected to be back in the next couple of weeks. But his replacement, Foster Moreau, who made a large impact several weeks ago in the big win against Philadelphia, only had 3 targets during the entire game against Washington. His only reception resulted in a big 34-yard gainer, but we needed to see more of that.
You know, we talked about this last week. We said, even if Darren Waller is out, Foster Moreau has proven that he could step up and be a proven target and a dependable target. And he went off against Philadelphia. And I was really looking forward to seeing him step out of the shadows this past week. They just didn't give him the ball enough. He only had 3 targets and just the 1 reception. That's not nearly enough.
Simply put, Derek Carr did not go through his progressions at all. He zoned in on the outlet pass, and that was it. Unless he had in his mind ahead of time that he was going to go to a different receiver, he checked down immediately. It really was. It was captain check down for the game.
And here's the amazing thing. He went to Hunter Renfrow 10 times, and he was open all the time. And he could have probably hit those routes all game long. It's like if you're going to keep going there, and they know that you're going there, but you can't stop them, why not continue?
Yeah, and Foster Moreau is completely capable of taking Darren Waller's spot. Is he Darren Waller? No, but he's capable of being just as impactful as Darren Waller. Carr just needed to get the ball to him.
And we talked about this off air. Derek Carr missed a lot of open receivers. There were receivers in the end zone. There were receivers in the flat. There were those cutting across the middle. He just missed a lot of receivers.
Yeah, he was zoned in on I don't even know what he was zoned in on, but he wasn't zoned in. The problem is he was zoned in.
Yeah.
You know, he's got to read his progressions. He's got to look around the field. And once again, it was a game where he threw under 300 yards. When he throws over 300 yards, he's reading his progressions, and he's going to the best receiver possible. When he's under, he's not doing that.
And the amazing thing is the Raiders had a couple of extra days off because they played on Thanksgiving. The Washington football team, on the other hand, was just coming off a Monday night game, so they were on a short week. So you would think that they would be more rested and really able to read those progressions and set up a good, solid game plan against the Washington football team. They just didn't do it.
Yeah, the Raiders had a terrible game before the Cowboys game and only had 4 days to prepare for the Cowboys and came out just the way they're supposed to. This game, they had 10 days to prepare for it, and they did absolutely nothing. There was no sense of urgency. There was no aggression. It was like the Raiders sleepwalk through the entire game.
And Washington came out loose, and we warned everybody they were coming off they had built a win streak. And Seattle, even though they are not nearly what they have been in years past, certainly not a pushover team. They were coming in hot, and the Raiders should have fully prepared for that. I really don't think they prepared adequately for this team.
I would have to agree with you. Derek Carr's most persistent targets for the game were Hunter Renfrow and Josh Jacobs. The receiver-running back duo combined for 18 catches, both grabbing 9 apiece. Renfrow had his second 100-plus yard receiving games, while Jacobs finished with 90 total scrimmage yards and a touchdown.
And, Jacobs had a good game. He wasn't an all-pro performance by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a very steady performance, both receiving and running. So I have to give him full props for that. Hunter Renfrow just keeps getting open, and he has become the dependable target now for Derek Carr.
Yeah, but I don't like to see Josh Jacobs as being one of our leading receivers because he's getting passes that are just floating 3 yards along the line of scrimmage and not even going upfield.
Well, if we're looking for a back to be a receiver, and you're getting ready to mention why, but we're going to need Josh Jacobs to step up.
We are. Raiders running back Kenyon Drake is out for the rest of the season with a broken ankle, and he's trying to influence some changes in NFL rules so that the manner in which he suffered his injury gets outlawed. In a pair of tweets sent out Sunday night after the loss, Drake said that the NFL should look into the type of tackling in which a guy pulled me back and used his body weight to roll up my legs.
The loss of Kenyon Drake is horrific for this team. He was really making an impact and out of the backfield as a receiver as much, if not more, as running back. So this loss really, really hurts the Raiders' offense. I don't think, no pun intended, but I don't think this influence that he's trying to have with the league to change the type of tackling, I don't think it really has any legs to it. I think this is just what happens in the NFL. Guys are bigger and stronger and faster, and this is just going to happen. It's unfortunate, and it certainly decreases the lifespan of running backs in the league, but these type of injuries are just going to happen.
Well, it's the second year in a row he's facing an injury due to the same tackling method, so I can understand why he's frustrated. I'm not so sure that it's going to make that big of a difference on the offense, and the reason why is because the Raiders haven't been utilizing him properly. They've sometimes utilized him properly, but for the most part, they've been paying him $7 million a year and selling themselves short with him. There's really a lot more he could have been doing. They just didn't use him.
Well, this is certainly going to force Derek to look to the other weapons, and we've still got weapons on this team.
We still have plenty of weapons on this team. Derek just needs to find them. So here we are. It's Chiefs week. The Chiefs are looking good, having just won their 5th game in a row, and the Raiders took another step backwards. Let's talk about what we just saw and also where we go from here. My breakdown of the game is pretty simple. The Raiders sleptwalk through it. They were not aggressive in any way. They didn't score on their first drive. They've barely scored on their first drive throughout the entire season. They did. They just sleptwalked through the entire game. They were inefficient in the red zone or as they approached the red zone. Again, they've been doing that all year. And we cannot win just on field goals. The Raiders are relying on field goals, and they're not going to win that way. I've already talked about Derek Carr not reading his progressions. He missed a lot of open receivers. He missed Deshaun Jackson wide open in the middle of the field. And his response to that was, well, I'm not going to throw to him blind. I didn't know where the middle linebacker was. And you can just see the reason he didn't see the middle linebacker is because he was nowhere near him. I mean, nobody was around Deshaun Jackson, and he didn't see it. Carr, I honestly thought that he would be able to pull it together this year, lead the team to a winning record at the very least. I was thinking 10-7, but after watching him for the last 5 weeks, he only had one good game. I don't really support him anymore. I hate to say that, but I really don't. He's dropped the ball too many times, and this is the 3rd year in a row where the Raiders did good at the start and then are falling off at the end of the season. That's unacceptable. This is supposed to be a commitment to excellence. Carr isn't upholding that. It wasn't upheld during the game at all, but that was it. There was no aggression. They sleptwalked through the game. Near the red zone or in the red zone, they did nothing. It was just a really frustrating and disappointing game to watch.
Yeah, I agree with you. There was no sense of urgency. The Raiders, I believe, have only scored on their first possession 3 times this season. Now, the defense, I thought, came out flat during the first series, then settled down. Taylor Heineke was racked up several times during the game, but the Raiders continued to try and run the ball when they got it, even though they couldn't run it effectively. And a lot of the passes were east-west instead of north-south. Deshaun Jackson, as we mentioned, only had 1 target. Foster Moreau, as I mentioned, only had 3, and Brian Embers only had 5. This offense has to open up, and they can't get into the habit of playing from behind and playing for field goals. And when the Raiders got that last field goal to go up late in the game, I couldn't help but feel like someone called up Paul Gunther and had him dial up the defensive scheme for that last offensive series by Washington that ended up winning the game for them. We've got to see a lot more offense this week, more chances by the deep threats and more shots to the tight end. It can all happen now. It needs to happen. And I will mention, like you, I've been a defender of Derek Carr all year, but I think that his time is coming to an end. He is been the leader. He's been viewed as the leader of this team. But in this game, when everybody was looking to him as the leader, he didn't provide that leadership. And I think he, like you said, dropped the ball on more than one occasion. Fortunately, there were no fumbles, there were no strip sacks, but metaphorically, he did drop the ball, and I don't think he is being looked on very confidently anymore as the leader of this team.
Yeah, there was no passion on him. You could look at him on the sidelines. There was just no passion. He was just kind of dejected hanging out there. He really didn't do much at all. It was disappointing to see that, for the 3rd year in a row that it's happened again. So as we mentioned, it's Chiefs week, and the Chiefs are on a roll. What's going to happen this week, T3?
Having said all the negative things we had about Derek Carr, we played the role of the Grinch in Dallas on Thanksgiving. Well, now we're just 2 weeks before Christmas, and I say that the Raiders are going to play that role once again. No one will be expecting it, and it's going to be just like when Buster Douglas knocked out Mike Tyson back in February of 1990. Foster Moreau, I predict, is going to have a big day. Brian Edwards is going to have a big day, and Deshaun Jackson is going to score at least one touchdown. Derek Carr, that same Derek Carr, will have at least 4 touchdown passes on the day, and the Raiders will come out of Kansas City with a 35-24 victory. No laps around Arrowhead this time. We're just going to take the tree with us.
Well, T3, I certainly hope you're right, because I don't see it ending that way. I see the Raiders coming out flat again with no sense of urgency and them going down in Arrowhead. Derek Carr has a lot of trouble playing in Arrowhead Stadium. Yes, they did win last year, but it was earlier in the season and it was with an empty stadium due to COVID. It wasn't the normal Chiefs crowd that you would play in front of. The keys to victory, if the Raiders were to win, is finally convert in the red zone. Give Carr time. The offensive line didn't do that great this past game. Carr does need more time to go through his progressions. But Carr needs to go through his progressions. So I would say the key to victory is to actually generate touchdowns in the red zone and for Carr to go over 300 yards. Because whenever he goes over 300 yards, that's the magic number. That means he's been reading his progressions and he's been doing well and he's been leading the team the way he's supposed to. If they can do that, I could see the Raiders coming out victorious. However, I don't think that's what is going to happen. I think the Chiefs are going to pull out a victory, and the score is going to be 27-13, because I just don't see the Raiders converting those red zone visits.
Well, I want you to prepare that blackbird pie for me this week, because I am putting myself out on a limb, and I am not losing hope. If Derek Carr is going to go down in flames, let this be his parting shot to Kansas City and to Raider Nation and to the world.
Well, I'm sure hoping that I get to eat some blackbird pie next week, because I would love to be wrong. I just don't see the Raiders pulling it off.
That's right. I meant you to have the blackbird pie, so I'll prepare it for you. How about that?
Okay, that sounds good. And like I said, whipped cream and a cherry on top, along with the ice cream.
I will gladly fix it up that way, any way you like.
All right, sounds good. Okay, T3, how about bringing us your top 3 for the week?
T3's top 3.
All right, here's this week's top 3. Number 1, I like Rich Bisaccia a lot, but I like him as a special teams coach, not as a head coach. Now, Clemson head coach Dabo Swinney was in town this past week. I know he was supporting one of his former players, C.J. Spiller, on an upcoming honor and award, but Swinney is the type of coach who has experience with a lot of players in the league, having either coached them or coached against them. But he has something else. He's got that winning pedigree. The Raiders organization needs to find that somewhere in a coach, regardless of whether it's in-house or outside the organization. I'll go back to what I said before. Make Louis Riddick the team president. Let him make the decision about the GM. I would say give Mike Mayock 1 more year and then assess the landscape. But Mark Davis simply has to build this team strong from the top. Number 2, now on this podcast, we've talked about the fact that the Raiders have not built up the 2 lines with draft picks over the years, and the lack of overall progress by the 3 first-round picks of 2019 does not bode well for the solid foundation of early picks on this team. Next year's first-round pick has to be a home run, and this year's first-round picks, I count Merrick as a first-rounder, simply have to stick. There's no other way around it. And number 3, over the offseason, I really think the Raiders organization should meet with the organizational heads of the Las Vegas Aces basketball team and the Golden Knights of the NHL. Something is missing in the exuberance of the stadium crowd and the generated excitement of the NFL product. In order for this game and this sport in this city to not only survive but to thrive, we've got to figure out the missing pieces. Character means a lot, but we need some of that old Raiders swagger back. That's what's been missing. And that is this week's top three.
I have to agree with you. I really do like Rich Bisaccia, but I don't like him as a head coach. The first couple games where he became head coach were victories, and I was thinking, well, maybe not. Maybe he would be a decent head coach. But it's become apparent that he can't make in-game adjustments. He's not planning very well for the games ahead of time, and his time management and clock management is downright pretty awful. It's pretty clear that he's in over his head. Now, a lot of times interim coaches are in over their head simply because, well, they were coordinator of some type, and in the middle of the season, they have to step up and become head coach. So it's not uncommon for an interim coach to be overwhelmed. But it's pretty obvious that Bisaccia is just not in his element as a head coach. And it is time for him to go back to be a special teams coach, whether it be with the Raiders or with another team.
And it's really unfortunate, as we mentioned on an earlier podcast, that Bisaccia got his shot the way that he did. But having made it to the first couple of games, I think that there was a lot of enthusiasm behind the team to really rally behind him, and the schedule was pretty favorable. But then when they hit that stump, and of course that stump was several things that happened all at once during the off time, but it really sank the team into a low point, something that I do not think that they were able to handle psychologically, and it's just put them in a funk, which they haven't been able to get out of.
And I'm not sure how any head coach would be able to lead a team after what happened with Ruggs. I mean, that is a pretty impossible situation for a head coach to be able to bring their team through that without some baggage. And I do understand that situation really did affect Derek Carr as well. But Bisaccia is just in over his head. He's not a head coach. He's a really good special teams coach, but he's not a head coach. And the two lines, wow.
Yeah.
Our drafting has been awful, period. It doesn't matter where we're drafting. The drafting has been awful in the upper rounds. Alex Leatherwood was drafted to be a right tackle. He'd never played right tackle. He had played guard and he played left tackle. And we expected him to step up into the NFL as a rookie, having never played the position before, and do well? What are the Raiders thinking? That is not a good way to build your line. Now that he's in the guard position, he is doing a lot better. But the Raiders just keep pulling stuff like that, and I don't understand why they keep doing that. They've neglected drafting for the defensive line. I did like Morrig. He was definitely the right pick for us. But the lines have just been abandoned. There are holes in the line that need to be addressed. Whether Mayock is there or not, I don't know. But it needs to be done.
And we really didn't need to abandon the line this past year because we replaced a lot of the offensive line. And we were placing a lot of trust on some unproven talent. It just didn't work out.
Yeah, and the injury to Denzel Good was really big. And of course, Richie Incognito not being able to play was really big as well. So the offensive line started off with two big injury strikes against them just at the beginning. So that would have been hard for them to handle.
And I hate to say I called it, but back in the summer, I said Richie's not coming back. And everybody looked at me and scoffed at me and said, oh, he'll be back. But I kept saying, with his age and with the extent of the injury, I just didn't see him coming back. And I think that was a wasted roster spot.
Yeah, and it's pretty much become apparent that you were completely right.
Well, a stop clock is right twice.
A clock that stopped is right twice a day. And the Raiders swagger, the Raiders crowd, that will be solved by the Raiders winning. The Golden Knights of the NHL were the city's darlings their first year. Well, their first year, they also went to the Stanley Cup Finals. There is a reason the city got so behind them, is because they were winning. The Raiders need to do that. If they do that, the stadium crowd will sway more to the Raiders' side. As long as they're putting out performances like they did against the Washington football team, though, season ticket holders are going to sell their tickets to make back a little bit of money that they spent on the team. And I don't blame them. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't do it if I was them, but I understand why they're doing it.
Yeah, and lots of Raider fans are jumping ship right now, and I totally get that. I understand that there's a lot of frustration, and people are saying, well, why would people sell their tickets to people that aren't Raiders fans? Well, let me tell you something, and this is probably something that you know well. Cleveland fans, there's a reason why Cleveland packs it in with their own crowd, the same way that Buffalo does and the same way that Detroit does. Those places are not destination cities. Those are not places that people want to go. So they're able to pack it in with their own fans. Now, Las Vegas is a destination city, just like Dallas and that new show place of Jerry's is a destination place. Los Angeles is a destination place. Even Phoenix, Arizona is a destination place. But Vegas needs to win. The Raiders need to return to winning ways and that tradition. That will keep the fans coming. And that's the only thing that will change this franchise and this mentality.
Yeah, I think that is the only thing that's going to change the presence of the Raiders in Las Vegas. The Raiders will always have fans there, but the overwhelming feeling of the Raider Nation being there, it's not going to come until the Raiders start winning, because they're just missing that certain something, and they need to win for it to show up.
You have to just win.
Baby.
Right.
Give us a call at 904-701-8667. Leave a voicemail or text message at that number, or send in a message via social media, and we'll share your thoughts. Why don't you tell us about what's going on Raider Roots this week, T3?
All right, Heidi, this week on Raider Roots, we're not just going to go back to Super Bowl 11, where the Raiders won it all, but we're going to give you the entire transcript of the game. The episode's a little longer, but this will let you just drink it all in. So sit back and enjoy the sweet success of a Super Bowl victory with John Madden, Kenny Stabler, Willie Brown, and Super Bowl MVP Fred Biletnikoff.
All right, T3, why don't you tell us what we do or don't know?
All right, now it's time for another edition of Did You Know? In this segment, I will ask Heidi and the rest of our listening audience a Raiders-related question with 3 possible answers to choose from. It's multiple choice, so just give it your best guess. So here goes. Here's this week's question. In 1987, the NFLPA, that's the NFL Players Association, went on strike, and the owners organized teams of replacement players for 3 weeks. Who was listed as the starting quarterback for the then Los Angeles Raiders? Was it A, Mark Wilson, B, Vince Evans, or C, Rusty Hilger?
Well, I know all 3 of them were Raiders quarterbacks at some point, but I'm going to guess that it is B, Vince Evans.
And you are absolutely correct. Vince was trying to work his way back in the league. Mark and Rusty were both on the roster, and when the players went on strike, they stayed solid with the union, so they did not cross over during those 3 weeks. So Vince Evans came in and led the team for all 3 weeks during the replacement players' reign. So B is the answer.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I knew that he was wanting to get back in the league. He would probably be the one most willing to cross the lines. So that was kind of an educated guess.
There you go. He was, and that was the beginning of his career with the Raiders, which turned out to be a pretty good one for the time he was in, and lasted a pretty long time too. But his first 3 games were with the replacement players during the strike in 1987. And that is this week's version of Did You Know? And you did.
All right. Well, I have always had a real soft spot for Vince Evans. There's 2 Raiders quarterbacks that I really have a soft spot for that are often forgotten, but I really like them. And one of them is Vince Evans, and the other one is Bruce Gradkowski. I really like those guys. And I wish they could have stuck around longer.
And you know that Vince Evans is from my hometown, Greensboro, North Carolina. So I've got a special affinity for him.
Of course you do. And Gradkowski, if he wouldn't have gotten injured, who knows what they would have done. He was that little spark plug. He really was. He was a spark plug.
And now, Raider Nation, it's time for Heidi's Heroes.
Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
Well, this week's hero is a game hero, and it's pretty much the only Raider that I could think of that would possibly count as a hero. And it's really no surprise, but my hero is Hunter Renfrow. He had 9 receptions for 102 yards. His longest reception was 28 yards, and he averaged 11.3 yards per catch. He was the one steady thing that was going on in the offense for the Raiders. He has been on fire this year. He really has. You know, he had a good year last year. He had a good year his rookie year. But he's really taken the step above where he was at. He's doing better on his routes, and he is just a really great safety valve for Carr. And he's really producing, and he's doing a good, consistent job at it. And it's good to see that out of him. So Hunter Renfrow, you are my hero for this week, and you definitely deserve it.
And I think we've mentioned this on the podcast previously, too. When you take a look at the production of fifth-round draft pick Hunter Renfrow from the 2019 draft, and you couple that with 2021 fifth-round pick Nate Hobbs, I think we have 2 of the premier fifth-round picks in the entire league over the last 3 years.
Yeah, and I do have an honorable mention. This guy, it was really his first impactful game of his career, and it was Divine Diablo. He finished with 10 tackles, and he really made a difference. It was nice to see him overcome his injuries and actually be able to contribute. And Malcolm Kuntz, he got his first sack, his first career sack. So Diablo and Kuntz, they both deserve an honorable mention.
It was good to see both of these guys on the field. And I do want to give some props to Trayvon Merrick. Merrick has had a good, solid season. And, you know, if he had been able to hold on to that one interception, he's a rookie. Mistakes will happen. Had he been able to hang on to that one interception, the entire narrative of our podcast would be different. Those things happen. But, again, we can't pin the loss on him. But, again, if he does make that interception, the entire narrative changes.
Yeah, it would. And we would be in a completely different situation as far as playoffs go. But, you know, I don't blame him. Like you said, he's a rookie. Things like that happen.
He will make many, many more big plays over the course of his season. I'm predicting that right now.
Yeah. And that about does it for this week on the Only Nation podcast. If you'd like to help support the show, you can send in a donation at paypal.me/onlynationpod. We would like to thank our sponsor, Chucky Slugs, for sponsoring this episode this week. And you can find me, Heidi Stabbert, on social media as @Kevlar Prom Dress on Twitter and Instagram, or Heidi Stabbert on Facebook. You can also find me on YouTube on Captain Jack Rackham's channel every other Tuesday night. I join the DC wench Peggy Holmes and Andrea Trask on the Captain and His Wenches show.
All right, Raider Nation, we want you with us every step of the way during the regular season, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So here's what we would like you to do. Send us your name and address so we can send you some free Raiders swag and podcast stickers. Call us and tell us what you want to know. Throw us an interesting nugget that we can use on one of our upcoming episodes and become a part of what we're doing here. We are still here, regardless. Remember, this is the Only Nation, and we want you to be a part of it. So call us 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. Call us now and join the Only Nation podcast family. There are 2 easy ways to find me on social media. You can send me a tweet at T3_sports703, as several of you do, or you can hit me up on Facebook at Tom, Thom Jones. I want to also thank you for all your continued support of the Raider Roots podcast. This week, we're going back to Super Bowl 11 in January of 1977.
As always, we look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, everyone, go Raiders.
We are not just a nation, we are the only nation, and we're coming for you, Kansas City.
Yeah.